Yeah.
The presenter here, she has.
Yes.
Professor Robert Hernandez.
And I'll just go through the questions.
Agent Robert Hernandez, if you're here, please come up to the front. Thank you.
And if you have any questions right now, anything? Yes, there's going to be some. I'll keep track of time. Don't worry about that. You guys just focus on answering the questions, and we'll do kinds of questions I sent. Like I'll start with a little bit of the introduction of the panel. I'll leave you all to introduce yourselves and your organizations a little bit, and then we'll go through some questions that I have, and then open up to Q&A for most of it. So good. Yeah, of course. I'm very excited to have you all here, and thanks again for having me. Of course. You know what, even if we don't have a fourth person, that's okay. This is more time for you to answer questions.
I believe we all can talk about this topic for hours.
Yes, no, there's
I'm
a
gonna
lot.
put your word on that. I'm gonna give you the mic more often then.
No, I feel like it's a pretty broad topic. Once you get into like the specific, specifics, not really.
Okay, everyone, we are going to get started with the session Youth in Civic Engagement and Advocacy. Please come take a seat. We welcome you to come sit in the front so you can get a better view. Also, if you are outside and can hear me, we will be starting our next session shortly. Thank you.
Also, really quick with the mics. So when you press that means it's on.
Yeah, it has to be.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, I'm so happy to welcome you to our first plenary session of the day, Youth in Civic Engagement and Advocacy. And I will hand it off to our moderator, Josephine Ward.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Josephine Ward, and I'm a first-year student here at UCLA, studying political science and global studies, and I'm also a program and practice associated with IYC. I'm so honored here today to be moderating this panel on youth in civic engagement and advocacy. This is a very, very large and pertinent topic. I mean, there's so many world challenges today, whether we're talking about climate change, or the advancement of AI and digital technologies, which we talked about a little bit yesterday in previous panels. There really are so many different topics we can cover, and it's more important than ever that youth engage in any way they can, whether that's in a public forum or in policy making. So we're just going to be talking today about different ways that youth can get more involved. Obviously, sometimes it's a little bit harder when you're going through the traditional policy making pathways. But we're just going to try our best to open up a dialogue and see how youth can actually get engaged in advocacy and in civic engagement, and not necessarily through the traditional spaces, which might not always be open to youth. So first things first, I'm going to hand it over to our lovely panelists to introduce themselves, a little bit about their organization, and just kind of explain like your opinion on the topic and just like brief introduction.
Hello, good morning, everybody. It is lovely to be here. Hope you guys are doing well as well. My name is Celine Chin. I am a youth change maker, social justice advocate, and community organizer, nationally globally recognized, but really proud to call California my home. I am a proud daughter of working class immigrants, and at 13 years old, I founded the Reclamation Project. So a little bit about us. The Reclamation Project is a 100% youth-run grassroots youth justice organization, and our mission is to spearhead equity, solidarity, and liberation, particularly for youth in California who are of marginalized and historically underserved backgrounds. So our work started as just a group of 7 middle and high schoolers, and today we are a full-blown operation reaching youth not only in communities across California, but thousands across the world and across our nation to really spearhead that mission through programs for community change. I'm going to be an incoming freshman at Harvard University studying ethnicity, migration, and rights, and passionate about immigration law, ensuring that all people of all backgrounds across the world are respected and dignified.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I am honored to be a part of this panel to talk about this important topic today. My name is Hayrunisa Kalak, and I am project manager of the Alliance for Shared Values, where I lead the Young Leaders in Civic Engagement program. YLCE is an initiative that recognizes, uplifts, and guides young change makers that are trying to make contributions in their communities. And whether that be through volunteering, projects, the youth are out there, they're trying to do something, and we are trying to recognize their efforts. And I think what's important, with not just projects that tackle societal issues, but also projects that bring together people from, diverse backgrounds, from diverse faiths, cultures, just bringing people together. And I think for me, civic engagement is about connection. It's about coming together despite any differences for the common good. And like I said, whether that be through local projects, volunteering, advocating for a cause, or just creating the space for dialogue, I think every action we take has the power to create meaningful change. And what excites me about the youth in civic engagement is that they bring fresh perspective, they bring bold ideas to the table, they see challenges as opportunities, they are eager to listen, they are eager to learn, they are eager to lead. And I think when we support their voices and their ideas, we lay the groundwork for a future rooted in unity, in equality, and in a shared purpose. And so I think that's why platforms like YLCE and like the International Youth Conference is very important, and they matter so much because when these platforms amplify these voices and these initiatives, that inspires other young change makers to take a stand and lead initiatives. So I really want to thank the organizers for inviting me. I'm looking forward to the discussion and learning more from my colleagues as well.
Okay, hello, my name is Simon. It's good to be back after yesterday. I'm the head of the Youth and Sports Division at the Czech National Agency for International Education and Research, organization with the largest possible name. And civic engagement, participation is one of my favorite topics because I truly believe that without youth engagement, we cannot move forward. And we'll always loop and loop and loop because the older generations will sit at their tables, ignore the young table, the young table grows up, starts to ignore the young table that is new, and this vicious circle continues. So I truly believe that civic engagement in the purest form means that we all sit at one table and listen to each other. And also we cannot forget about inclusion, because participation and inclusion need to go hand in hand. Otherwise you will have a group of current or future lawyers and political scientists making the policies, forgetting about the 99% of the youth that is probably left somewhere behind. So I truly believe that true participation involves inclusion inherently.
Thank you all so much. I mean, so much wealth of knowledge here, so much expertise in different fields, and I'm so excited to get this conversation started and to explore some different ways that youth can actually go through this channels and find that seat at the table. So the first question I have is just, in your experience, how have youth engaged in civic settings and advocacy, and how can they potentially pursue those non-traditional pathways to get that seat at the table? And we'll just go down one question.
Yeah, definitely. And I echo what has been said here, is that civic engagement is about connection, as echoed by my fellow panelists. And I think a lot of the work when it comes to how do we get the young generation involved in our politics and our policy in our communities is to really reimagine what the definition of civic engagement really means and meet young people where they're already at. Take a look at what young people are already doing in their communities and what do they care about. As someone who started organizing when I was 13 years old and now someone who's 18, a lot of the question comes in when people ask me from other generations, how do we get young people to start, quote unquote, start caring? And my response has also been, we've been caring. We do care because we live the experience of what it means to face global challenges. We understand what it means to be the forefront generation dealing with an ongoing climate crisis, dealing with inequalities and insecurity in our communities. And knowing this and working with thousands across of the different stories, battling systems of trauma, of violence and poverty, my answer has been, we do care, you just have to meet us where we're at. And there are many people in this room and many organizations in this room working to advance youth who are at the upper stages of policy advocacy in elected offices and in powerful positions. And that is wonderful to bridge youth voice into that stage and platforms. But my question is, what can we do to meet young people out in the grassroots who are working to host drives for food insecurity in their neighborhoods, who are pulling donations in their communities and their local schools? So a lot comes with it, but I start with understanding that civic engagement is about much more than just the top and few positions. Civic engagement is a broad concept that I feel like anybody can get involved as it is grassroots through simple volunteer work. So how can we bridge those opportunities and make it more accessible and equitable for all who engage in our young work today?
Thank you so much, Celine. I mean, that is very insightful commentary. Yes, we want to give some applause. It is so important just to meet youth where they're at. I mean, you know, as youth here, we can all say that there are a lot of issues that we care about, and it's so important to actually come together and, you know, get their initiatives out there. So I completely agree. And how do you say?
So thank you, Celine. That is a really important point. And I guess to echo and to add on, you know, through the YLC program, I've seen, you know, countless types of projects, right? The youth are working on, you know, advocating for climate change. They are working on women empowerment, girls' education. They're working to amplify the voices of underrepresented artists. They are working to improve vision care in some communities, maybe in India. And even yesterday at the Collaboration Hub, there was a plethora of projects that are just really eye-opening to see what the youth are doing, how they're involved. But I think the common theme between all of these projects, even though they're scattered across different you know, ideas and fields, is that they are, the youth are turning their passions into action, right? So it's what they care about, it's what is close to their heart. And I think more than not, the projects they are working on, it's close to their community, but also close to their personal interests and personal cares. I think a lot of time they turn their lived experiences and they connect it with the broader issues in their community. And so that really, it really channels them to be more creative and to lead with more heart. And I think historically, you know, youth have always carried their passions and carried great ideals. And so when they lead with strong moral values and when they lead with a sense of serving humanity, they lay that foundation for just and compassionate societies. So I think, you know, the youth are out there, they're doing great things, and because it's more rooted in their passion, it's usually more, you know, they lead more with their heart compared to adults most of the time. So I think we really needed to see that their passion is is where their actions stem from.
Thank you. I mean, that is just such an important message. Not only is your organization doing such amazing work, getting those youth advocates really involved, but I think just remembering that passion into action. I mean, just those 3 words, it's so meaningful, that's so deep, and that can be applied at a variety of levels or a variety of issues. So that's a wonderful message, thank you. Simon?
Yeah, I totally second what has been said, because civic engagement is not a one-sided process. It's not that the youth engages and that's it. The youth is trying to engage since they are little kids. We all did, and they always have. The problem is that the other side is often not listening enough and not giving the spaces, not having the voices that are being spoken but have been heard. And you can see that quite often with the youth washing or tokenism, that quite often young people are given some space in public discussions, but you can see that whenever a young person comes up to the stage, the rest that should be listening, actively listening to what's being said, pulls out their phones and checks their emails. Because they know this is a young person with very little political power, they are not important to us, we don't have to listen. And that's the main problem. We need to start listening. And it's often more work. It's the youth are demanding, it's hindering the processes that are working smoothly because they want change. Change is hard and expensive. But we need to do that. We need to start listening actively and following through. So my message would be that the slightly older youth generations, millennials, 30 years old, 40-year-olds, need to start listening more to what the current generation is saying. And that's why I love the idea of the Council of the Future, that's it, the teenagers, because that's the real youth voice we should be hearing more from and actively listening to.
Thank you so much. I mean, the issue of like youth tokenization, it can be seen at a lot of different levels, but I mean, it's panels like this with young people and trying to get people more engaged that's going to make that difference. And I guess just a message to all the adults in the room is to be listening. But thank you so much for your very insightful commentary. And so the next question I have is just kind of with the work that you've been doing within your organizations and throughout your career, how have those, how have you had examples of civic engagement specifically for youth, and are there any things you can draw on your own experience to kind of align with the topic?
Yeah, I can start with some of the lessons that I learned as building an organization from scratch for youth, as also a youth myself. And I encourage those in the room to also kind of search this up and cite this too, if you haven't heard about this already. But I learned throughout the years to kind of adopt a model called the social change ecosystem. And you can look it up. It's a model spearheaded a couple years ago by an organization called the Building Movement Project. So really, what is the social change ecosystem? So the social change ecosystem is essentially a model that says that each organization, including every single one represented in this room, plays a role in the broader context of how we change our communities, our nations, and our world. And within this, you can look it up, it's like a pie chart situation, but we have a core value, which is justice, equity, inclusion, and so much more to better our world. And then we see branches that come out and feed this broader mission. Each organization plays a role or multiple roles, and that could be you are a weaver, which is somebody that bridges opportunities together and conversations together. You can be a storyteller, which is somebody who brings underrepresented voices into the broader stage and see how we communicate our mission together. So many roles and possibilities here. But what I learned from building the Reclamation Project in California, my home base, is to see that we can apply these same values into how we engage and meet with the young peoples and their opportunities. I'll give you an example. I like to think of my organization and the work that we do as weaving. What is weaving? It is taking the opportunities that already pre-exist and bridging them into other parts and other ways that you have never heard of. What is something that, from my experience, that my students and fellow peers and youth have already aware of is community service. Volunteer opportunities and local opportunities at food banks, at shelters, or even parks that we see across California is something that already exists. And we say, we are gonna meet you where you're at. We're gonna encourage you and empower you to do what you're already doing because we know that you care about this work. However, let's introduce you guys to see how that relates to the broader stage of social impact. We understand that youth are, at least from my experience, have experience in volunteer work. And we say, because you are so passionate about this form of civic engagement, allow us to introduce you another concept called mutual aid called food insecurity, and see how you can channel that volunteer power that already exists, that you already kind of fell in love with throughout your years in primary school or middle school, and say, join us in this movement here, and we will appreciate and honor you for what you have brought to the table.
Thank you so much. I mean, that is a truly powerful message, like connecting those grassroots community organizations to the broader effort, building those bridges, and just trying to work to create a more unified system. I mean, that really is powerful. And, you know, in a lot of cases, that's how civic engagement, that's how youth voices are going to get heard. Thank you. Teresa.
So I think throughout my career, I've always been passionate about bridging communities and empowering others to lead. And I think this stems from my experience as a youth in high school and college. I believe I had really great mentors, and I was given the opportunity to lead and make change in my community various times. And I think that really helped me form a sense of identity and self. In high school, I was a part of a group called the Young Peace Builders. We were a group of Muslim and Jewish students. We got together, we learned about each other, we created that dialogue, and then we also did community service together. Like we went to soup kitchens and whatnot. So I think that experience really gave me the sense that I can create meaningful conversations in my community. I can create change in my community. And I'm very grateful to the adults in my life at that time that gave me those opportunities and gave me the confidence and instilled that confidence in me. And so translating that into, my career and my semi-adult life, I'm trying to do the same with the youth around me and through, our program, the YLCE program. I think it's really important to empower youth to instill that confidence within them that you are, your voices can be heard, they can make a change in society. And so I think just my sort of experience with my younger self really I wanted to sort of bring that change to the next generation as well.
That's so important. I mean, kind of just reiterating the same points of like forging those connections, building those bridges, and especially across cultures, across states, across nations. Like it's so important to come together with those connections, especially with that common goal of like unity in civic engagement advocacy. So thank you so much. It's so important.
Yeah, my personal experience with civic engagement is basically being annoying and asking the questions and asking why is the system built like this and challenging it, asking where I could. And now what I'm trying to do seems successfully is to create platforms for young people within the policymaking at the level of ministries. And me and my organization, my team, we are creating youth advisory panels in hopefully each ministry in the Czech Republic that would offer young people a platform to regularly meet with the decision makers to look after the decision making, to give comments on proposals, on new legislature, and for the ministry it's an opportunity to really hear the young voices. For the youth, it's of course a chance to express. So what I think is very important is to create a platform, not to hope that the youth will make it on their own somehow, but to support them and create spaces where they are being heard actively.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, that is so powerful to be actually creating within these policy-making systems that usually aren't accessible to youth, to have these youth advisory panels. I mean, that's the sort of like concrete change action that needs to be happening in the long term. It's so nice to hear that, that you're actively advancing that goal now, when that's so needed.
Yeah, we just need to hope that the ministries will actively listen and not use it as tokenism, but that's our job to make sure of.
That is very true. I guess it's the perpetual issue that we're all trying to work against. But at least creating those pathways is a good first step. The next question I had was just what concrete actions can you take? I mean, you've all kind of addressed it a little bit, but just if you have any more specific concrete examples to become more civically engaged, especially given the current atmosphere, the current divides that are happening in the world. Like, are there any specific opportunities or actions that you should see youth taking in order to achieve these goals?
Yeah, if I may also address too, is that political systems and economic systems to youth often leave young people asking, what is there to be done? I feel like a grain of sand amidst this giant mountain of issues that is cascading towards me right now. And in many ways, I feel like it is the part of accountability and responsibility for organizations, like almost everybody in this room, to really say, I understand that frustration, and sometimes I understand that pessimism and this idea that young people cannot do anything. And really to provide a sense of empathy. I can speak to the work that I do with my organization, that we deal in work to empower a lot of young people who are of ethnic or racial minority backgrounds, whose families are low income, who are first generations in their families who attend college or access higher education. So our voice and our story want to tell them is that we understand what it's like to feel like you have no agency in a world that wasn't necessarily built to offer you agency. And we as organizations are here to serve as partners and dedicated mission, like spearheaders, to say that we want to help reclaim your agency with you. We understand that you have a right to reclaim your agency, as the Reclamation Project was hence named. And part of it too is that what has been echoed is that you have their passions to build their projects and work on those issues. So at the Reclamation Project, we worked really hard to lobby and partner with foundations and governments to say that young people have projects and ideas that are stirring in their communities, and we need to distribute resources to them, we need to fund them and give them capacity. Because I personally feel that regardless of your background, your challenges, and some hardships, as long as you have the right tools and you have the right heart to put in that hard work, that you can be a builder as well. We currently work with a group of 10 youth fellows who each have received a $1,000 grant to start a project in their communities, because we know that while they're all from marginalized backgrounds, every single one of them are either racial minorities, low income, or first generation, that once we provide and leverage those resources, they have the possibility to become builders. And we come by and we see all the busy work day to day. I'm sure you guys are busy folks with a lot of emails and a lot of meetings to attend, but really think about what is your mission at the core heart of it. And for myself and for the work that we do in California, it's about transforming youth from just passive receivers into proactive transformers, into proactive challengers, and shift that framework that we think is youth engagement. Youth are not simply the passive actors and receivers, but we can take the charge and we can take the lead of many of these issues that we're grappling with here today.
That is so important. Thank you. Just to find that agency and to really become the drivers of action, just like you said, not passive receivers. We have the ability, to be the real change makers, and just creating those platforms, which is so amazing. Our organization does that work. Who's trying to reclaim that agency. And thank you so much for sharing your insights.
I think, Celine just said that wonderfully. I think if I were to just add, just as a first tangible step, I would say start locally, start small. Don't underestimate the power of small steps. I think, just being involved in your school, being involved in your community organizations, or even just volunteering at local events. I think being present is a great first step to taking that initial leap. And I do wonder Simon's perspective on this, because I don't know if you guys noticed, I feel like on my left here I have this great young change maker who's encouraging the youth to do all these, and then on my right I have this wonderful man who's holding the adults accountable, and I love his perspective on this. So maybe if you want to add more.
Yeah, sure. Because I think the very important thing is not to shift the burden only the young generation. Like, what can you do? What you don't. Now, the necessary step is to to hold the adults or the policymakers, the changers with actual influence at the moment, hold them accountable and make them listen. So one of my biggest plea or response to the question what the youth can do is when they grow up, teach your kids to be active. Instill the sense into them since they are very young and teach them to ask questions, to be the disruptors. And that's the most important part, to start when the kids are young, because if you grow up without these opportunities, it's quite difficult to start when you are 15, 16, 17. So creating within the family, within the community, within the nation, the notion that the young people are important and that we actively want to hear that. And what they can do now is to ask questions, to send emails to whoever, wherever, if they find an issue they are passionate about, get deep into it and try to make a change, however small. As Jan Bach, also youth leader in the Czech Republic, who helped a lot in the previous regime in fighting for democracy, he said that each person must fight the evil they are actually capable of fighting at the moment. So take a step, however small, because in total, if you add all of them up, it will lead to the change.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's such an inspiring message and such a reminder. I mean, all of you, the same, start small, start within your community, within your family, and kind of like build from there to create, whether that's an intergenerational connection, forging between the adults who are going to be the listeners and potentially the policymakers. And, it's not all on youth. We're the ones who are up here right now, but it really is going to be a collaborative effort to get the change that we need to see in the world. So thank you so much for your insight. I do have, some more questions from me. We have a lot of people here and potentially online as well who might have some questions for our wonderful panelists. So I will open up to the floor for questions right now. I think, we'll be sending some mics around. Hopefully, if you have any questions, please just raise your hand.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Kate and I'm actually from Toronto, Canada. And I know that in Canada, we have a lot of youth activism going on and there's a lot of youth voices being represented, which is very, to me, it's a privilege because a lot of other countries might not have that opportunity. And my question is actually, because we have a lot of youth representation right now, for a lot of youth, they're struggling with starting something new because there's a lot of voices being represented and they're not sure how exactly they can stand out amongst that crowd. And I was wondering, how do you find a passion and how do you make your project and your vision unique from everyone else and to truly make an impact? Thank you.
I can just maybe give slight of a different perspective on your question. It is important to have your own project, it's important to stand out, but I also think there's strength in numbers. And in an environment where there are a lot of maybe youth voices, a lot of youth doing projects, I also think it can be valuable to find like-minded individuals that are already doing great things and joining them. I think there's strength in numbers, so I think that could be a different perspective on that issue.
Yeah, and you read my mind there too. I would definitely encourage with whatever community you're building to consider the power of what it means to be a coalition. So a lot of times it's not about bringing up new issues because we have grappled with age-old issues, with new perspectives, each generation after generation. It's about finding new ways to look at issues, finding a new perspective into issues, and say that my perspective and my lens on this is unique, but that doesn't mean that we're separating ourselves. It means of how we can build a broader coalition to say we are different people, different experiences, backgrounds, and identities, and that is what makes us unique and stand out each on our own. But within a broader context, we cannot do it without solidarity with each other. So I encourage collaboration as well, just like Ed would here.
I think I have nothing to add.
Thank you, it's all very insightful.
That's very rare to happen.
We have a question, Barry?
Hello everyone, my name is Iswa and I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I have a question for our panelists, especially the young girl. I would like to know, how did you manage at your early age, schools and also community workers, at your early age? Because, as young people, especially who are still in schools, we may find hard to, to balance school and community work. So how did you overcome that?
Yes, I understand that, and I will be lying to all of y'all if I said it was easy. So a lot of it comes with knowing the fact that we start in different stages. So we started in 2020. So that was when we were just a group of less than 10 youth, each pitching in their own capacity and working through some model of teamwork so that it is delegated and a healthy model for us to work with. But within, I would say, about the second year of this work, I realized that there was a lot that we need in order to do what we want to do, and we need a lot of capacity. So that is where what's epic here is that we can ask adults and hold adults accountable and create an intentional effort to have partnerships. I remember it was about the second year of this work as I realized I need money to do what I need to do, and I need time to do what I need to do. And that's when I realized that young folks should be encouraged and not be afraid to reach out to adults and say, do you have an advisor, a mentor, or something to make this process a little more streamlined for me? And once we started working in partnerships, not just for our own youth circles, but talking to different foundations and nonprofits in the area, we were able to get a lot more done in a smaller amount of time, I should say, because of the number of people that were on this effort. So in many ways, within the youth day-to-day lives, I would heed the call to delegate and build a network and ecosystem within your organization that you're doing to say who has the role, who has the skill set to carry out this role, because within my Resident Reclamation Project, we have a director board, we have a panel of youth council, we have volunteers, all in different levels and tiers of working in some sort of machine cog to organize it effectively internally. Externally, though, we know that in our community, there's a lot to do, and almost every single one of our efforts we have done through partnership or do consulting or exchange of ideas with other organizations to say that we do not have to be the sole one to solve the issues, but we are just one perspective within an entire myriad of partners that we can be working with.
If I were to just add to that, I don't know if you've heard of the saying, I don't know if this is how it goes exactly, but if you need something to get done, give it to someone that's already busy. I feel like usually when you have a lot of things on your plate, right, you're more motivated to be more structured, more disciplined. So I think although it's not easy, it definitely having school and community service and all of these initiatives that maybe you want to be a part of, it is a lot on your plate. But I think looking at all the examples of these successful young change makers is that they are busy, but they are structured and disciplined in a sense that they have so much time because they make the time. So I think that's just maybe something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I would also add that each one of us needs to do whatever they can, but not put too much pressure on themselves. Because sometimes, given the resources available, the support from family, community, it varies. And it's amazing what we are doing, but I believe that it's not possible for everybody to do it on this scale and magnitude. To give an example, during the pandemic, I was working with an NGO to tutor young underprivileged kids who fell out of school because of the COVID measures. And I was working with a young man from the remote community who was not attending school because he had to help his family by working with his dad on the construction site. This young man, even if he would love to change the world, he simply could not, because all his duties to his family and work and school simply did not allow him to work on such magnitude to start his own organization, get funding, etc., etc. So to him, I would say, do a little change. Help one person in your community, 2 people, 3 people, a group, but do not put too much pressure on yourself to start a global NGO that will start changing the whole world, because the world changes by small steps with each one of us.
Thank you all so much for your insight. Are there any other questions? Should have online. Let's see, we'll do the online first. How do cultural values and societal norms influence the way young people engage in activism across different regions? Start with our leaders.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what the current establishment allows you to, and what would be a regular norm for social activism in most countries. In some of them, can be perceived as the highest form of rebellion. If we look at countries that are very strict with policies, for example, towards women, towards minorities, even speaking up, which for us is normal here, even the act of speaking up is a huge risk, possibly even punishable by imprisonment or other penalties. So the societal norms vary a lot, and I think it's our duty, or it would be nice to try to push them as much as possible whilst staying safe and risking only what we can afford to lose.
Yeah, I think, when you try and help or make a change in your own community, you are aware of the nuances, you are aware of the details. So, you're able to operate in that way. But, when you have maybe more of a global initiative project that you're working on, sometimes those nuances or, the cultural norms can be an issue, like I mentioned. And I think it's important, as Selena mentioned before, to form partnerships, right, with the local community, listen, understand, what is the norm here, what do they need? Sometimes, from one community to another, you may feel like, okay, I think you guys need this, but do they actually need that? Is that what they're looking for? So actually understanding the need that is there, and, treading lightly on these kind of cultural norms and nuances, I think it would be valuable.
Yeah, and within all of that too, I think I can provide a perspective about cultural social norms that has to do a lot with like equality and different circumstances that young people are born into that they can't necessarily control. And a lot of times there is an understanding of what is the youth's priority right now. Where we have experienced in the Reclamation Project dealing with youth whose families have been impacted by incarceration, whose families have been impacted by gang violence or the gang violence in communities. A lot of the times, the youth priority is to, like Simon said, to get through school, perhaps, and to just make it day by day and care for their families. And that should be a number one priority they take care of, I feel. Within that too, I want to say that how important and how relevant that lived experience is to how it informs that young person's perspective of how society should change. And think about it, our policies and our programs as organizations or governments or ministries should be informed by the young folks with experiences, because we will not know what it's like to have a program that is equitable and serves justice to a student who is first generation, to a student who has families dealing with the foster system or homelessness. We wouldn't know that unless we intentionally take in their voices and say we need lived experiences to inform systems rather than systems to bring down and take down our lived experiences.
Thank you so much. I believe you had a question in the back. Yes, we have Marcella.
Thank you. So, hi, my name is Marcela and I'm from Honduras. And since you touched the topic of donations and community work during your panel, I'd like to ask for some recommendations, but I just want to provide a little bit of context basically last year I had a project in mind that I was able to carry out. However, it was not as successful as I wanted it to be because it was basically consisting of gathering donations for my city, San Pedro Sula's most impoverished hospital. It's a state hospital, however, it's been completely abandoned to the point where we don't even have cotton available for surgeries. So I was trying to get donations for the maternity area, for the mothers and the newborns. However, when I approached different companies, stores, they didn't really take me seriously because I'm a young person and I'm still a student. So I really struggled with being able to receive donations in a larger scale. So do you have any recommendations or tips, or how do I approach these people in order for them to take me seriously and to see that I'm really trying to make a change? And maybe this can work for me or someone else here who is trying to make a change in their community, but they can't because they're limited by these types of prejudice. Thank you.
I think I can start. When asking for money and fundraising, that's always the hardest part. What I would recommend is to get associated with a renowned organization, maybe the hospital itself, to give you the background, to show to the potential donors that this is not an initiative of one student, but it's supported by the institution, so they don't maybe not as afraid to lose the donations, to make sure that it's not like some kind of scam or scheme. But yeah, thanks for what you do. It's very important to be active. When it comes to money, it's always the most difficult. So I would suggest to get together with some institutions, organizations, try corporate fundraising, which is the most cost effective and time effective, and luck.
I totally agree with what Simon says. Just as an addition, I think sometimes, in addition to trying to form a coalition, like he said, not just like as a one person's initiative, but maybe more of a group, or maybe with some other organizations, maybe even locally, to sort of, make your name a little more, I don't know if this is the right word, like padded, like you have other kind of organizations behind your back when asking for that money. But also I think sometimes there's value in how you present something. So, sometimes the way that you present, maybe even with pictures, asking the organization or like the companies, like, do you have maybe 10 minutes for a small presentation where you can show pictures, videos, try to really impact and affect their reasoning in terms of like, okay, this is a student that has worked, that they have, gathered the data, they've made this in, presentable form, not just like a small hey, like you have a donation, but like they're actually putting in the work. I feel like there's a lot of power in how you present something, so maybe, and I'm sure you're already doing a great job with that, but maybe there's some type of improvement that can help with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with my fellow panelists here, and knowing the nonprofit world and how fundraising is like that little pebble in the wheel. Anything from, we can have conversations all day about, tax write-offs and return on investments, but I think I really want to center it on your passion and just thank you and have so much gratitude for you showing up for your community too. And I trust that you are not the only one in your community and the only student who cares deeply about these issues. In many ways, entities, wherever sector they come from, care about the impact and the reach that they're influencing. And in many ways, you can show that you can garner community support. I'm someone who's very community-oriented. Show and bring that there's power in numbers, like it has been many times. How many people support your cause? How many people will your cause be influencing? When you can really garner and prove that magnitude of people that it will reach, you can convince folks that it will be of a help greater than just yourself. Know that you are not alone in here, and that when somebody helps you or donates to your cause, there is a manifold butterfly snowball effect that you can prove that you're not just helping me, you're helping so-and-so. Our neighborhoods are families and communities, and the number is of, I assume, is an interconnected community of, if not tens to hundreds of thousands that are related to your community. that you are among a broader picture that you can also bring forward.
Thank you so much. I mean, very valuable insight from all the panels, and thank you so much for the question. I think we have time for one more brief question and answer. Oh, there's so many. Okay. And also for everyone in person here, I mean, this is full of true homecoming person, I guess. You're welcome to talk to our panels after. I know there are a lot of questions and a lot of insight, so I think I'll prioritize initial questions for now, just so we can talk to the panels afterward. So the question, what strategies can be used to engage young people in advocacy efforts on issues that may not seem directly relevant to their lives?
Show them that they are relevant, because I believe that most of the main questions, or the most pressing issues nowadays are relevant to everyone. Some people just don't see it right away. So try to make them see it. And it's possible, it's truly not relevant to them, and in that case, it can be. Like, choose your battles. If somebody does not believe that the topic is relevant to them, try to weigh whether they are not correct in that. If you think it is relevant, try to make them see it. If it's not, move on.
I love how once again Simon's sort of holding the adults or them accountable to say, that the youth are relevant, make them believe that. And I think I can say maybe to encourage the youth is, like he said also, no issue, every issue is relevant to everyone, I think. And I think it's a matter of how much you educate yourself on that and how much you engage maybe with that specific community. So that's what I would encourage.
Yeah, and I also agree. I think every issue is relevant in some way or degree to each person's life because I feel like every issue is interconnected. How can you say you care about climate justice and environment and not about income inequality and racial justice when there is a very clear proven pattern that climate change impacts low income and ethnic communities in some of the harshest ways. So there is a lens that we kind of have to shape that. Is what we call racial justice-based intersectionality. There is the concept that issues in our world today interconnect and have been tied so deeply that we have to face the very different facets and lenses that some person exists. Some person can be a young girl or woman who does not get as many opportunities compared to male peers, but at the same time also come from a low income or immigrant family who may not get the same set of opportunities in different systems. So to really make it short, that a person's identity and everybody in this space most likely lives in different axioms of their existence. And to really be more educated and learn how these issues tie together is the first step in understanding that these are relevant to everybody and we cannot stand alone. We do not cater and we do not build single issue movements because we do not live single issue lives.
Thank you so much. I mean, let's just give a round of applause to our panelists. So there are many, many questions in the audience that are still, waiting to be asked. And I'm so sorry that this is going to be the conclusion of our panel. But luckily, we have our amazing panelists here, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to answer some questions afterwards. So if you would just like to come up to them and ask directly. Thank you all so much. I mean, this truly was an insightful message, starting at the grassroots level, starting locally, forging connections, and really trying to build those community strategies when it comes to civic engagement and advocacy, and especially for all the adults, just making sure that everyone's actively listening and able to implement the changes that are being asked of by the youth. So thank you again so much to our wonderful speakers. I am so grateful to have moderated this discussion and like to thank you all here today and online for the questions. And again, if you have questions for the panelists, you can come up and talk to them after. Thank you all.
Can I ask one quick question, please? Just one minute. Yes, as somebody who believes in Africa's liberation, this first speaker, I think he talks about Guinea. Africa, we have a lot of youths, but one of the most difficult things we have in Africa is engagement. Our youth are not engaged, and anytime we try to be engaged, it's difficult. Because I'm from the Gambia, we have a ministry called Minister of Youth, and the leader is not a youth. He knows nothing about it. The employees are old people. And I met a lot of my colleagues here who want to be directly involved in Africa's liberation and development. But anytime we want to organize something for African youth, you cannot have it. If you want to raise on your own, the leaders will politicalize it. We have organizations like ECOWAS, African Union, there is nothing about you, nothing new about it. We want to develop something since we met here, and we have a lot of Africans from different countries. How do you think we will be able to connect and liberate African youth to make sure that our voices are heard in the continent and globally? I'm sorry for asking.
No, no worries. I think your question definitely merits a long response. I know it's like 20-second really quick answer. I know that's not really enough time, but maybe you can speak after as well.
Find allies who will be willing to help you within the governments and structures.
I mean, perfect answer, you know, great answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful questions.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for that wonderful panel and the insights that our speakers offered. It really